Thanks for coming. So I thought maybe it's useful that this morning we have a sort of a candid discussion about some of the issues that have been raised by the opposition regarding the Malay Muslim community. But I'm happy to take questions on other matters. First, let me just say a few words. As you all know, an opposition candidate have said that the Malays, like his own Sikh community, is still not performing well in examinations. So I suppose when you listen to some of the opposition politicians, it sounds as though they are fishing for votes. But I suppose that's to be expected. But I like to say categorically that for the PAP Malay Muslim candidates, we don't use the Malay community's problems in order to get into politics. We enter politics in order to tackle the Malay Muslim challenges. And so when Mr Pritam Singh said that voting against the PAP will be an impetus for change, I find this quite meaningless. I'm a Malay Muslim Singaporean. I really don't need the votes as an incentive for me to work for the Malay Muslim community. And I can say the same thing of my good friend Mr Zainal Abidin Rashid. His long record speaks for itself. For young Singaporeans, they may not know, like Mr Pritam, that Zainal was once CEO of Mendaki, editor of Berita Harian, even president of MUIS. So service to the community is in his DNA. He's always been doing good work for the community, and therefore he doesn't need an election rally stage to sound good. His record speaks for himself. And I must also say that it was partly because of Zainal's influence that when I came back after my studies, I was encouraged by him to enter the community service, resume my work with the community which I left after I went off for my PhD work. So for many of us, politics came much later when we realized that we have a role to play at the national level. And at the same time, if you look at all levels, be it politics or community, there are many of us, Malay Muslim leaders, volunteers who are passionately engaging the community because we realize that we have a role to play. And you can see that the community is buzzing with programs. I mean, just look at what we've been doing since the CLF was formed about 5 years ago. And so, at the same time, these groups provide a lot of ideas, suggestions through the CLF framework. So, when Mr. Singh mentioned about the things that he wants to do, I listened intently to see whether there are any ideas that he may have that we have not thought about it. Unfortunately, I came away disappointed because he used words like bold ideas, comprehensive appraisal, but I've not seen any new ideas coming from them. We are here for the long haul. Zainal, myself, Mr. Masagos, Mr. Zaki, Dr. Fatima, and both Mr. Zainal Sapari and Dr. Intan. We're here for the long haul because we want to help the community. And I'm confident that our community knows that once in a while you see people coming in, poking into our community affairs. These are passers-by, and we know how to treat passers-by. Right, let's focus on what the community has done. Now, in terms of progress, I gave a comprehensive interview to Berita Harian. The data has been outlined. If you look carefully, in the last 10 years, there's been a general uplift in terms of the Malay community's performance in education at all levels, PSLE, O levels, A levels, Polytechnic. One indicator that we use is the Mendaki Awards. It's past 300 mark. When I first started out as a volunteer in 1982 in Mendaki, we probably had less than 20 who won the top awards. Now it's over 300. So I'm not sure whether that's progress or not in the eyes of the opposition, but it is progress. And we must not forget that in dealing with the community's challenges, it's not a single one challenge of education, it is intertwined. And so we have basically rolled out our sleeves to tackle issues like dysfunctional families, dropout rate. Mr. Masagos worked very hard together with the other MOE officials to reduce the dropout rate, and he's been reducing progressively for our community. And then in terms of the social challenges, the divorce rate, minor marriages, all those numbers are coming down. So if you look at comprehensively, community has progress, and that's very important. So I would like to appeal to the Malay Muslim community, let us not be distracted by the sound and fury and the rhetoric. Look at the data, look at what we have presented. Mendaki has produced a booklet which is available to all our community members to give you a snapshot of what the community has done. And I think that's very important. Right? So we should not be distracted by all of this because we know we're on the right track. More importantly, I think we want to be able to stand proud that we did this on our own steam. Yes, there was government assistance through the formation of Mendaki, ANP, and so on and so forth. But to a large extent, it is the community effort coming together, rallying the community leaders like Haji Bakar, Hussein, Ustaz Sheikh Muhammad, and all others that came together to rally the community. So again, we are not an overnight phenomenon. We've been here for the last 30, 40 years working together. I have benefited a lot from the contribution of other Malay leaders, and we'll continue to build upon that legacy. More importantly, through the CLF, we're very inclusive. We have ideas and suggestions from a whole range of people. So if there are good ideas, please drop us a note. We'll be happy to discuss with you. Because ultimately, we're in this business in order to help the community forward. We're not trying to take advantage of the community challenges, but we want to tackle it. So I thought I should end there and open up for any questions or discussion that you may have.
Yeah,
Please.
Minister, Mr. Pritam has also asked about community-based approach.
Sure.
Could you comment on that?
No, community-based approach has been around since 1982. I think what he does not understand, unfortunately, is that the approach has evolved. Right? We have started out basically using education. We got assistance from MOE that allow us to gain some insight into some of the challenges. But over the years, we've understood what's going on with the assistance of government, and we have now been able to produce better programs, right? Which basically reach out to the more targeted group. See, let's look at what happens in a school. All schools want to improve their academic performance, and so they run a lot of additional programs, right? But it is back to everybody across the sort of the spectrum of performance. What we do in Mendaki is that we work with the schools to identify those who need a leg up, needs extra help. So for example, last year we piloted a program called ROPE. Very expensive program. It's 1 tutor to 6 students. Why? Because we know that we need to step in to deal with the math challenges at PSM. All of the students pass the math exam. That's what we call an indictment of our approach, and we're going to replicate that in 20 other schools in Singapore this year. When the point is, the schools will continue to play that part. We come in and complement the schools with a community-based approach, which we have found to be effective. Does it marginalize the community? No. Does it make us less integrated with the rest of the society? It does not. If anything, Malay students now are well integrated into the whole of Singapore society. Why? Because once they do well and they pass the examination, they feel that they can also contribute and work together with the colleagues in their schools, in their classes and what have you. So my sense is that he don't quite understand because he's not been doing it. We've been doing it. We've been rolling out our sleeves, I mean, Zainal has been working long before I even thought about community service. And you ask him, he did it when he was in the university, doing work in Geylang, Mendaki, Muiz, Berita Harian. So I think we should not ignore all of this contribution by all the Malay MPs. But the point I want to make is that we work together with the Malay leaders.
But Minister, his argument is that despite all these programs, there is still a perception that Malays are still lagging behind.
Well, you use the right word, it's a perception, right? If you ask me, it's a matter of time. A matter of time where we'll be able to sort of throw a lot of peaks. What we are trying to do now in Mendaki is really to raise the water level as much as possible. Help as many students as possible, run as many programs as possible. But we are seeing the peaks. At the PSLE, we see people topping the PSLE. We're seeing some people topping the O levels, some people doing well at the A levels, some people doing well at the university, getting first class honors. So the peaks are coming, right? So if we push on with this effort, parents working together with Mendaki and the rest of the organization, I'm confident that we will see many more peaks. And we've seen a nice flow through of Malay students gaining government scholarship. Some of them are active in Mendaki Club. Will the number grow? It will. It's only a matter of time. Because Malay parents now understand that you have to put in a lot of hard work together with organizations, and I think the results will come up for itself. Okay?
Anything to add to what to PM's comments?
Well, I know he touched on the flood. I think Ian is right. I mean, let's be honest about it. When it happened, I was in the office and I got a call. The visuals were really, really very stark for us, and we realized something has happened. And so we tried our very best to tackle the problem, and we realized that after the fact, when we saw the data, the double storm that occurred on Orchard Road on that fateful day in June, we realized that the canals just does not have the carrying capacity for that kind of rainfall. So we have learned from it. That's what PM is trying to say. We've analyzed it, and we realized we have to try and raise the Orchard Road level. We regret the inconvenience that happened to a lot of the businesses and other parts of Singapore. But the most important thing is that we just don't sit down and be idle. We went out, we met the stakeholders, and for example, we worked closely with the Orchard Road Business Association to help them to raise barriers in front of their places because they're slightly lower compared to the road level. So all this is already in place, right? More importantly, for the community, my PUB officers have been working very hard. My own area, as you know, was flooded in Jalan Taman. we had a dialogue, we met them, we engaged them, and I think it's very important for us to get the stakeholders to understand where we're coming from. Unfortunately, sometimes the vagaries of weather are very difficult for us to predict, with enough precision. So we are now going to accelerate our drainage upgrading program, which I've announced in Parliament, and we'll do our very, very best to make sure that this does not happen again. But I don't think anybody can say with certainty that another thunderstorm like that will not happen. But we are confident if that thunderstorm were to occur at Orchard Road, with the enhancement that we're doing the canals in Orchard Road, it should be able to deal with that kind of challenge.
What's your assessment on the ground at Moulmein-Kallang?
It's good. Frankly speaking, we've been walking the blocks for the last 6-7 days. Residents have been very, very forthcoming. A lot of feedback on municipal issues, which we are tackling: mosquitoes, block drains. So the town council is working very, very hard to make sure that we can deal with this problem. Special requests for some services, buses that they are looking into. So I've told my other colleagues, let's collate all of this feedback, and after the GE, and if we are elected as the Member of Parliament for Moulmein-Kallang, we will sit together as a team to see how we can tackle some of this problem, because you can just kind of put a bus route in one part of the constituency without affecting another, so we have to work with LT at this point. So we've told the residents, we'll come back to them. When we walk around, my chaps take down their number, their address, so we want to close the loop. I think it's very important to assure them that we are trying to tackle the problem.
Minister interrupt you. He mentioned that he made a police report recently.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about it?
I did not know. I just saw when I saw the report this morning. It's really unfortunate what happened to him this evening. Yeah.
So you were not there. He didn't tell you
No,
about
he
it.
didn't. What we do during the day, as you know, we do market visits and we fan out our own areas of constituency, and then we regroup back at my branch in the night to have a feedback and discussion to plan for the next day. So yesterday he was a bit busy. I think he's planning something for PM today. For the web chat, I think. Yeah.
No wonder that's why he rushed off just now.
Exactly, yeah. He has a couple of things to do. It's his responsibility.
Dr. Yaacob,
Yes, please.
WP has commented that there's a gap of communication between PAP and the town councils here in GRC Moulmein-Kallang.
How did they come to that conclusion?
That's what they say, and also the issue of rental flats here that they want to improve upon. So maybe if you
see,
give a comment on
this
that.
is what I'm quite amazed. Yeah, we heard their feedback about the fact they want to do more for the elderly and the rental blocks. We pay special attention to the rental blocks for the last 5 years, ever since we elected in 2006. First, we work with the HDB and the town council to make sure that the amenities and the facilities are all upgraded. And in fact, they have all been upgraded. But I think the more important thing is the program that we do for the elderly here in Moulmein-Kallang. Previously, Jalan Besar, of course, now it's Moulmein-Kallang. We have a whole range of programs. For those who are old, infirm, really what we want to do is to make sure that they grow and they age with dignity. So what do? We actually provide them free food. We have befrienders for them. And in my own area, and I'm sure it's been done in other areas, when we have special occasions like Hari Raya or Christmas, we collect sponsorships from well-wishers. We buy rations for them. We bring them down to the party so that they can also be part of the community. Then you have the next layer where young couples out of a job, all of us pay special attention to make sure that we get the husband or the wife to be gainfully employed. We work closely with the CDC, WD. If there's a Malay client, you can ask Mendaki. Immediately we refer to Mendaki Sense so that we can try and get him a job. So by and large, I think we have the system in place. So I'm not sure what gap they're talking about. What is it that they want to do here? I have one senior activity center in Kolam Air. Jalan Besar has 2, Moulmein has 2, Kampung Glam has 2. Previously, Lilino has 3 in Tanjung Pagar, because we know that the elderly is a large part of our constituents and we have to deal with them. And they are thankful for what we have done because they know that we do this because we want to help them, basically. So I'm not sure what else, And when I go to my rental blocks, the reception is very warm. They know that we are there for them. We're not here just to wayang and put out a show once in 5 years. We've been there almost every month, because in my own constituency, every month we actually have a meeting with the senior citizens. We distribute rations and what have you. In fact, just last month, I got the young people to come in, to do the work so that they can also feel, and they've been doing fantastic. And this is the result of Facebook, as PM mentioned. A member of my YEC and young PAP just flagged on the Facebook. A lot of young people came to help out on that day, basically. So it shows young people are not apathetic. They want to have a role to play, and they came down. I was very heartened to see their faces. Some of them came as far as Tanjung Pagar, some from Tampines. And I even have a housewife, an Indian Muslim lady. He says, I read about it, I want to do something. He came down. So are young Singaporeans apathetic? I don't think so. They want to do something. So we want to create roles for them.
So you reacted to Mr Pritam Singh's response to the comments about the Malay community.
Sure.
What about the NSP's Nur Lela Madia? What are your thoughts on what she said?
About?
Well, she said a slew of things, calling for an apology from MM, for instance, and
Okay.
then saying that in times of crisis, the Muslims would probably help themselves rather than help others in the community. What
Well,
were
I
your
didn't read that
responses?
part because I would be very disappointed if they think that we are very parochial in our outlook. Malay Muslim community has always been an integral part of the Singapore society. I mean, just look at what we did after 9/11, right? We were right at the forefront dealing with this issue, working at the ground, spreading the messages necessary from the home agencies to ensure that Singaporeans be aware of our challenges. So I'm not sure whether she's aware of what we've been doing, you know. I mean, the Malay Muslim organizations will feel insulted to feel that we are very parochial in our outlook in terms of dealing with challenges. We are not. We are very well integrated with the other members of the Singaporean community, and we want to continue to play that role because we know whatever happens in Singapore, it will affect us, right? On MM's comments, I think a lot has been said already. I mean, he said he stand corrected. And I think the most important thing for us to reflect is on what PM said. PM made it very clear that he is confident that the Malay community is well integrated into the larger Singaporean society, and he has said that he does not share MM's view. But MM himself has come out and said, "I stand corrected," right? And I've responded also to show that the reality on the ground is very different from his own perspective, and the fact that MM now is listening to our feedback, realizing that what he understood may not be what is happening on the ground, I think is enough reassurance for us to know that the government itself, led by Prime Minister Lee, has no problems with Malay Muslims integrating into the Singaporean society. So again, I think this is an example of an opposition trying to fish for votes, right? I mean, if you were to ask them what solutions do they have, what are their suggestions on how we can be better integrated, I'd like to hear them, because we've done everything possible. You look at our mosque, it is so well integrated with the nearby CC, they do programs together. You don't see this in other parts of the world. I had visitors coming in and says, "Hey, your mosque is supposed to be a place of worship." I said, "No, our mosque is part of the wider community. We work together. When we worship separately, that's to be expected. But when we do community events, we do together." You can see the many examples of the mosques across the island.
She says that the Muslim community will forgive MM for his comments, but they may not forget, she said. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would agree that it was hurtful, because it shows that, in a sense, it's like saying what we've been done for the last 40 years, he does not recognize it. But I think for the Muslim community, when we heard what PM said, we were assured. We were assured that he understood what we've been doing, and he basically gave us the assurance that we are on track. So my sense is we'll take time to heal. I'm not going to deny it, right? For young Singaporeans as I have met, they were a bit angry. Look, hey, we've been doing this now. How can he say that? I said, never mind. Let's look at the larger picture. So let's not run away from the fact that these things did have an impact on the Malay community. But at the same time, the feedback that we have received, people understood, and we're moving on. Because there are other issues that have to tackle, and the fact that PM has come out and he has said he has stand corrected, I think the vast majority has accepted that, and we're moving on.
So you don't need an apology then? Is that what you're saying?
You have to ask MM Lee for that, right? The fact that he said I stand corrected means he knows that what he said earlier was not right on the spot, and he wants to correct himself. So I will leave it at that.
Mr. What's your assessment on the Mr. Pritam?
Oh, he's doing very well actually. He joined us, much earlier with Dr. Lee. Then he left and came back, and he's been walking down the blocks together with his branch supporters. I joined in a couple of block visits, and of course this morning market, his market at Block 17, very warm. So I'm quite happy that Edwin has joined our team, and I'm sure that he'll be an integral part of our team going forward.